Hey guys, what's going on? It's Nick with Tailored Timepieces, and I'm just bringing you another quick episode here. What I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about myself, and then also, um, why I got into watches, and a little bit about my story. So, I guess we'll start today's episode pretty similarly to how we start all the episodes and talk about the watch that I have on my wrist. Today we have a Tudor Black Bay 58. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. It's in blue, and I think that it's definitely one of the most interesting and most popular watches I think you can get, in that around 3K price range. I think that it's a great starter piece, and it's a great piece to just wear around the house. I mean, especially myself, I'm working from home today. So, if you just want something that, you can kind of beat up a little bit, I think that this is definitely something that you can entertain. I mean, at 39 millimeters, it's going to fit most wrists. And what I love about this is just the dial. I think that the white indices really pop off of the navy blue, and I actually prefer it to the black. I think with the black, it's a little bit too toyish. I gotta say. I mean, again, this is just my personal opinion. If you're a black guy, in terms of the watch colors, of course. Um, Go ahead and go with the black. I think that the black, I think just in general, black watches do better in a more formal setting. So, a day like today when I'm just lounging around the house and getting some work done for tailored timepieces, something casual like this is great. Um, Alternatively, I think that we are going to start each of these episodes, with me wearing a little bit of a getup. I mean, a Taylor timepieces off the cuff. We do work a lot with, um, people in the fashion space. So here in New York City, and people of that caliber. So to kind of stay true to the brand and also to show you guys some beautiful pieces, in terms of my other interest, which is fashion. Um, I'm going to be wearing, all different shirts and suits and just kind of give you a play by play, literally off the cuff of my jackets and go from there. But, back to my main talking point here. It's going to be just about how I started this and, my initial interest in it. So I started the company in 2019, October 2019. So we're coming on about 3 years now. And it started as a hobby, really. I started, researching different groups online and just different ways to, pull in some extra dollars. And basically, what happened was my parents, when I graduated school, in over in New Jersey, I wanted to get myself a college graduation gift. And my parents were like, "Hey, listen, we're here's they gave me $1,000, and they said we're not going to tell you what to do with this money, but it's going to be the last money you get from us until you get yourself a corporate job or something full time." And I felt like that was a fair trade. I mean, coming out of college, I felt like that was a very generous gift. Of course, my dumbass, wanting to celebrate, went out and got himself his first, really mainstream timepiece. I mean, I've had a little bit of interest in watches in the past. As far as those fashion watches, and I would say even now, I think my main interest in watches, uh, you know, different from a lot of these other dealers is, um, fashion and style and how I can pair it with different outfits. But, I always had fashion watches. High school, when we graduated, my parents gave me, it wasn't a G-Shock, it was a Movado, actually. It's a dress Movado when we graduated. And it's a watch that I'll never sell, due to personal reasons. But I thought that was like the coolest thing. I remember like people telling me how much money this watch was, and me, who was used to G-Shocks and those other more entry level pieces, thought this was really expensive. And of course now, while the Movados and watches of that sort are still higher end for a lot of people who might want to get in this space. I'm dealing with some beautiful watches: AP, Panerai, Rolex, Patek here and there. We'll get to that point, hopefully sometime in the near future, pretty regularly. But so here I was, and what I decided to do was get myself a Breitling Colt Quartz, and of course, because the idea of the automatic watch was still very far from me as far as price, and I bought it for $800, and off of some gentleman who's now become my friend and investor. We'll get into a little bit of that in the future, or rather later on in this episode. But basically what happened was I sold it, and somebody from a couple towns over offered me, I think it was like $1,200, $1,300. And my parents, of course, were itching me to sell it because I was here and I got myself a little college gift, and they were just like, we give you $1,000, you spent 800 of it on a watch, what are you, crazy? So of course, as I said previously, I had to sell it. And I made some money, and I said, hey, this is cool. Let me do this more as a side hobby. And through that, I found some of these great groups online that in these forums that facilitate buying and selling of watches in the wholesale vein. I had a gentleman who was based in Philly, and basically what I did was, when I graduated, I sold that watch that summer. I basically went to him and I said, hey man, you're a dealer, you know how to fix watches and do stuff with watches. I want you to educate me, and I want you to teach me how to do this as a fun little side hobby. And I was making a couple $100 here and there. I said, I'll work for free. I said, I don't want to, make a salary, but what I do ask is that when I sell a watch, I get paid a commission. So we worked something out, and I was going there probably around 2-3 times a week for pretty much the entirety of that summer of 2019, because I graduated school that May. And it was a really eye-opening experience. Unfortunately, that situation did not work out. He had decided, something happened. He ended up moving to Florida after some personal problems that he was having, with his family, unfortunately. But I learned a lot, and we sold it a lot. And then what actually ended up happening was, I told my parents, I said, let me do this as a hobby. Let me try and do this, rather transition it from a hobby to a more full-time gig. I said, let me try it for a year. I know it is a risk. I know that, a lot of these businesses, I think they say, 3 out of every 5 businesses fail or something. Most businesses don't last past the first year. But the way I looked at it, I was fresh out of college. I was still applying for jobs. I think at the time I applied to, over 100 jobs. And, a little bit about myself as well. I have cerebral palsy. So, it's difficult for me to get around, difficult for me to, move and do some of these tasks that these um, you know, bigger companies were, expecting of me, travel and do all that. So I'm pretty operational, for lack of better phrasing. I do have some mobility issues, but I'm able to live my life day to day without much many problems. So it was difficult for me. A lot of these companies, unfortunately, there is some bias, and they didn't want to hire somebody that had those challenges. And while it's unfortunate, at the same time, it's their business. They can do what they want. I'm sure they did what was best, and at the end of the day, it did work out um, best for me. And so I went to my parents. I said, "Let me try this for a year, and if I am able to replace an entry level salary, which for my degree at the time, I think was about $60,000. Um, then I would like to um, do this full time and continue doing this full time." And I was living at home, and I was traveling, from New Jersey to Philly 3 times a week. And they were all for it, and thankful for my parents for giving me that opportunity and kind of believing in me before I really had faith in myself to do this, if we're being very honest. Um, and so what ended up happening was, just because I'm a social guy, I was keeping in touch with the gentleman who had sold me this first watch. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going and I'm working with a jeweler in Philly, and we're doing a lot of business, and I'm really excited to do this, and I just think it's a great opportunity." And of course, he had basically said to me, "Hey, I have a bunch of watches that I'm trying to sell. Why don't you consign them?" And this was the craziest thing. This guy's name, I'll keep private, but his last name, but his name was Dan. And he was local. So my father used to work in the Rhode Island area, and he was local to my father's work. And we had met up at one of my family's apartments, based on a day that we had chosen, and he had just given me these watches to consign. It was like a UN and Breitling, couple other pieces, and he just said, "Sell them, and you'll get a commission on the sale." And I thought that was crazy. Who is this guy to, basically just give me these watches? I'm a friendly guy. I'm a very nice guy. I would never have any ill intentions, but it's just something that seemed out of the norm. But he also, props to Dan. He had some faith in me, and so I sold them. It took me about 6 months to sell them, and they were difficult. I mean, the interest of transparency. They were watches that I had to be very creative with marketing. My degree is in marketing, and I had to really put my nose to the grindstone. I mean, they weren't, Rolex Submariners that you got $1,000 above retail. That's a big misconception that a lot of end users have with dealers now, is they just get stuff at retail and they make buku bucks selling it for, thousands and thousands of dollars above retail. That's often not the case. But regardless, I digress. And it took a while. I mean, they were not watches that were very easy to sell, quote unquote. We had to, manipulate some trades, manipulate some numbers, and do everything we can to move these pieces out, because I saw it as an opportunity. I said, if I sell these watches quick for this gentleman, he's gonna want to work with me again. And I would say about a year in, after I had sold the watches, and I was, kind of building that nest egg of my own. You started with $800, and then you go and you make a couple $100, and now you have $1,000 to work with, and then you have $1,400 to work with, and it just kind of snowballs. I'm living at home, so at the time, so I didn't have a lot of expenses. So if I was spending $100 a week and making $500 a week, I was putting the rest of it into watches. And Dan, after selling some watches with him, approached me and said, "Hey, you're doing a really good job. I love what you're doing here. You seem really friendly, really motivated." Dan's an investor, and he was looking to invest in a young man and a business. So he basically said, "I'm going to give you some money to work with. You're going to pay me, a monthly fee for those funds, um, and we are going to make some money selling watches." So, of course, it was something I had to think about. I'm not going to disclose the money, the amount, but it was enough that it was definitely worth considering. And of course, the rate was as favorable as it could be for it being basically a private money loan. And I went back to my parents and I just said, "Mom, Dad, I think this is great. I want to do this." I said, "But I can't accept this gentleman's money and then only give it part of my attention." So they were on board. And my dad and I talked at length about what the risk and benefits of accepting these funds and working with this gentleman, was going to entail. And he's still a very good friend today, and a very knowledgeable mentor in just all business aspects. And I ended up doing that, and basically at that year mark, I had hit my initial goal, as we had spoken previously about hitting that entry level salary. And, I was off to the races, and it was a difficult start at first. I mean, you're basically a young guy straight out of college, and about a year in, I'm 23, and now I'm 26, but at the time I was 23, and I said, it's going to be difficult to kind of source these watches. How do I source these watches? How do I move these watches? And, we came up with the idea of tailored timepieces. Or I felt as though a large niche in the industry that isn't being filled properly or not being filled enough is the idea of a very personal experience. My experience with watches thus far had been basically going to 47th Street, or basically buying something on Facebook or eBay, not really chatting with the guy, going to 47th Street, and they have a bunch of watches. That's not a very personal experience, because those guys work on volume and move in 100. They just a week, 100 APs a week, and to kind of have that personal experience is very, very different. So I wanted to create a personal experience for my customers. And I said, okay, I love suits, I love fashion, I love higher end stuff. I said, we're going to do tailored timepieces and try to tailor the experience around, the customer. And so, what I started doing was just, calling up these people individually. I did have a background in real estate at the time. That's basically throughout college I was selling real estate, and it did help with the loans and things like that. And to just be as honest and transparent as I can with these customers. And of course there were some blunders along the way, and a big thing that I still struggle with to this day is unruly and rowdy customers. I think sometimes I'm a little too nice for my own good, but basically it was something. I mean, the thing that you introduce when you want to create a tailored brand is basically these customers that kind of become divas, and they say, I want what I want, and I want it now. And so learning to curve that anxiety, um, you know, with, and still hit those sales goals and hit those needs of the customer, by letting them know that you are available to them without overextending yourself, was a learning curve. I mean, I think it's a learning curve for every business, but it was definitely a learning curve for me as someone who's new to the business. So I started going to, a lot of my friends' houses. I would go with a watch roll, a three watch roll, and here, I wish I could show it to you right now. Maybe I could pull it out, next time, and I would just say, here's the watches that I have, and I would love to work with you. And, I would chat with them at length. And people that know me know that I do love talking a lot. Nickname that I had growing up was Kyakinon, which, in Italian that you're a bit of a chatterbox. But, I just call them up and, kind of turn that weakness, that perceived weakness into a strength, and say, if John wants a watch and he wants a 42 millimeter white dial, you're going to show him, maybe an Omega. You show him maybe a Breitling, a Super Ocean Heritage, something interesting. Um, Instead of what a lot of these dealers did at the time, and some of them still do. I think it's gotten better. They would basically say, "I have to sell this. How do I maneuver and how do I sell this?" And while I understand, there are pieces that need to sell and pieces you have to push at the end of the day, you got to think about the customer. So if the customer comes to me and says, "Hey, I have $5,000 to spend, and these are my options," I would basically bring my little watch roll and meet with them and say to them, here are the three watches that we recommend in your range based on your taste and your interests and things of that sort, and just kind of tailoring that experience. If they were a big corporate guy, I would say to them, get something with a strap that you can wear with a suit. A big, fashion thing is bracelets and suits. They don't go hand in hand. A lot of the unspoken fashion rule is, dress watches go on strap, but it's just a more formal rule. If they were in construction, I would tell them, hey, listen, if you're looking for something that you can beat up a little bit, maybe go with a Panerai. Maybe go with a Panerai. Maybe go with something of a sea dweller, or even just that. Maybe because on eBay and Chrono you don't have fees. Maybe they're looking for something in the $5,000 range because they think that's all they can afford. And you show them, actually, your $5,000 off a platform can go a lot longer and a lot farther because you don't have to worry about those fees. You don't have to worry about those middlemen. You're dealing with something, basically B2C, and not worrying about it. So I started there, and through that I was able to really connect. I used my fashion knowledge and my fashion contacts in New York City to connect with some great names and some great clients, some of whom have pretty sizable social media followings, and you position yourself that way. And this, to me, I mean, it's still a journey. You still learn a lot. Since then, I've taken on different associates. I've taken on different partners to accomplish different tasks. I think it's one of the, main things you have to do in business is kind of learn how to grow and how to manage a team. I think that the one man operation, lone wolf thing is very admirable, but I think that what's that quote? You can go farther alone, but you can go faster alone, but farther together. I think that that's not only a life life lesson, but I think it's also something we can use in business, and to just kind of put that customer first and build teams around people that like the product we're selling. And if you're fortunate enough, you build a family and a group. I hate it when people say, "Oh, we're a family." It seems cheesy, but it's true. You build a team that you know that just love working together, and I think we have that here at Tailored Timepieces. Between myself and Eric and Grayson, and the rest of the guys, and I think that I'm very excited for what the future has to hold. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story with you guys, kind of, you know, tell you how I got to where I am now. Hopefully this is the abridged version. We'll go into more detail, I'm sure, in future episodes. But yeah, thanks so much for your time.